back, and today I want to talk about how to prepare when life honestly just punches you in the face. I feel like that's such a strong visual, but even me just saying, I was like, oh, when life knocks you down. But honestly, sometimes you get knocked down and you just kind of get like tapped down and you just brush yourself off and you stand back up. No, I'm talking about the times when you get like hit in the, hopefully you've never actually been punched in the face. I have never, thankfully, but like, like you get hit in the face or like something that really hurts, it like takes you down. You don't just brush it off and stand back up right away. Those are the moments in life that we were talking about. And this quote has actually been top of mind because I heard it from multiple people lately where they said, yeah, I'm not going to quote it exactly right, but it was Mike Tyson who said, yeah, everything's good until you get punched in the face. And multiple people had said it, and I was like, gosh, that is so true. Is everything's going well for us? Maybe we're just kind of, riding out the wave of things being good, and then you get hit in the face with life, with usually things come in rounds of multiple things coming at us. And what are we going to do then? And I think so many people aren't prepared for that moment. They haven't built up the muscles, the tools, the resilience for that moment. And I don't want that to happen to you. I want you to be prepared and see that punch coming and maybe able to dodge it. And the ones that you can't, I want you to be able to get yourself back up. And this is really top of mind. So when I'm recording this episode, is actually 2 years since my husband had his surgery for cancer. So if you follow me on social media, if you don't, what are you doing? Check out my LinkedIn or check out my Instagram, whichever platform you are on, and I share a little bit more. But so 2 years, so again, this is when I'm recording it. You're probably listening to it a little bit later, but this week in April, 2 years ago, is when I was at my very first mastermind. I was out in Arizona and I was at my first business mastermind, and I had made some other investments into my business before. So I was, 2022, I was about 2.5, just about 3 years into business. And I had made some other investments, but this was a big one. This was like a stretch investment, not only from a financial perspective, but also just I knew it was getting me in the rooms. I had actually people that I had followed online on social media for a long time who I saw their businesses just skyrocket had gone to this mastermind. And I remember thinking like, oh, I'm going to be in that room sometime. So in 2022, I made that investment, and my very first retreat. We had a couple different retreats. Our first one was in Arizona, which of course is one of my favorite places to visit. And so I was really excited. Obviously, Jake has always been really supportive of me making these like time and financial investments into these things. So he was really supportive of it. And, I think I've shared this story a little bit before, but it's really top of mind given the time and the week. And Jake and I have been talking obviously a lot about it this week, and just like, wow, you blink and there goes 2 years. And so I'm out at this retreat, and we have the first day, it's amazing, and then we're out at dinner and I'm meeting all these people, and it's late, and I get a text from Jake saying like, hey, call me when you get back to your room. And I instantly knew that something was wrong, for a few reasons. First of all, I just felt it. Like, if you ever have that thing where you get like a message and you just like feel it in your gut, like I just felt it. And also it was really late by him. I was like, why is he still awake? So I remember being like, all right, I got to get back. I got to, make the walk back to my hotel room. I give him a call. And I still remember I was sitting, they have those desks in the hotel room, and I was sitting on the chair at the desk, in my hotel room. And I remember he was so stoic and matter of fact and saying, okay, so I had my follow up. He had gone and was getting a couple things checked out at the doctor. And he went and had a scan done and some blood work. And before he even got back home, they called him and said, hey, can you come back? And he ended up meeting with an oncologist, and they told him that he had testicular cancer. And so I'm on the phone with him, and he's like, I have cancer. And I talked to the oncologist, and they said that 90 something percent of oncologists would say that you need surgery for this. And so they didn't want me to wait because of what it was, and like, I guess not the severity of it, but sort of just like how much it had sort of taken over. And so my surgery's on Friday. And I remember just like, first of all, it was so weird because his voice was so unlike him. Obviously I think he was a little bit in shock still. and he was just trying to get through it and just say the facts, like, this is what we need to do. And then I remember it was like a checkbox where he's like, okay, so we have some big decisions to make, and we're going through and we're having conversations on things that you don't really ever want to think about, you don't want to talk about, you're not prepared to when you're not even by each other. And it is just so crazy to think that that was 2 years ago in that experience. And so one of my first thoughts was, you know, how quickly can I get home? And we talked about this for such a long time on the phone. And he was like, you don't need to come home. You need to stay there. And I remember being like, stop, like, don't be a martyr. I'm coming home. Of course, I'm coming home. And I just remember he had so much conviction. He was so adamant, and he was like, no, like, you need to be in that room. I feel it. I feel like, you made this investment for your business. Like, learn what you can for the both of us about business and build these relationships with people, and like be all there and take it in, and just get home in time for surgeries. Like, there's nothing you can do back home. All we would do is sit around and worry. And, I remember just like pushing back and just saying, like, I feel too guilty. Like, even still saying it out loud, sometimes I feel so bad that I wasn't home during that time. And yet I felt also almost like it was my obligation to stay, because he wanted me to stay and like teach him what I learned and talk about it and all this stuff. He's like, just be there and be present. Like, I actually want a couple days just by myself to process this with Sawyer. And so I stayed. And I changed my flight so that I could get home earlier and obviously make it home before surgery. And I just remember it all was like a blur. Like, the next day, I know I didn't tell a lot of people at the retreat, because honestly, I just didn't want to talk about it. I was not really sure how to process all of it. I wanted to just focus, like he said. And I feel like him asking me to do that, I was so hyper focused and asking questions and trying to network with people and just trying to like make the most of it while I was there for the both of us. But I remember I went to get coffee that next morning, and one of the guys who ran the program, was just like, oh, hey, Julie, how you doing? And I remember just kind of looking at him and being like, yeah, so I got this call last night. And he was like, wait, what do you need? And so I know I told a couple people there, and it's just thinking about all of it. And now, obviously I made it home in time for surgery, and surgery went well. And I've shared this before on the podcast, but we still are so grateful that, our experience with it was pretty brief. And we're, so happy to say that for the last 2 years, he's had clear scans. But getting a call like that, especially in the way that it all happened, and we had a little guy at home, like, it just changes you. It changes your perspective on things. And we also are so fully aware and grateful and acknowledge that we could have gotten a very different phone call. And I say that all the time, but I just want to emphasize it, is like, we could have gotten a very different phone call that so many other people get, that it had spread to a bunch of places. And we're even still now, like, that every time we get a clear scan, it's just like, that was one of those moments where I felt like life punched us in the face. Because, to be totally honest, like, both of us were trying to run businesses, which was really stressful at the time. We had COVID in the mix, that, we were trying to run businesses during the pandemic with a toddler at home. I've talked about, I had all of my health stuff going on, that when we got that call in April, we still had no idea what was going on with me. We didn't have answers yet. So getting that call, it was just like, and I always say, it's like I looked up and I was like, really, universe? And I share this again because, I just want to emphasize how grateful we are, and looking back on these last 2 years and being able to go, oh my goodness, look what we've been able to do. And so I want to share with you, what are some of the things that we had already been doing in our lives to prepare us for those moments. And, the things we had already been doing, but also, what are some things that we started doing more of after that happened, so that if, and the thing is that we know something hopefully, different or not as significant, like, we're going to get more of those things that aren't just you getting knocked down. It's you getting like hit like repeatedly, and life's like keeps pushing you down. You're like, nope, you're not ready to get up. You're not ready. Like, that's the visual I have, where it's like you're trying to get up. Do you ever feel like this, where it's like, okay, all right, oof, that one hurt. Like, if it's something that happens with your family or your kids or with work, like, it's like emotional or physical or whatever it is for you, you're like, oh man, that one hurt. Oh man. And you're like trying to get up and you're like dusting yourself off and you're trying to get up and all of a sudden another thing. And it's like someone just keeps pushing you down and you're like fighting with all of your might to stand up. And it just keeps like pushing and holding you down. That's what those years felt like for us, where it was like, okay, we've got this. We got a positive attitude. We've got our, our family. We've got our gratitude. But it was just like thing after thing and business thing and health thing and family things and life things. And it was just like, oh my gosh, we are ready to stand up now. And we know that that will happen again. Like we still have things. Luckily, I feel like we're standing up a little bit more than what we were before, but we know that we're still going to have things. So, what are the things that we do and that you can be doing? And the first one I always talk about is, developing your self awareness. And you need to really be aware of your own state and when you need to ask for help and when you need to phone a friend and when you need to take a minute and just go, like, okay, I just need a minute. And so we'll come back to this reframe that I talk about a lot of your thoughts creates your feelings, which creates your actions, which creates your results, right? So if you're a listener of mine, I've talked about this. If you're a new listener, this concept is so important. First starts with beliefs, the beliefs that you have about yourself. Create the thoughts that you have about yourself, about situations, about other people, which creates the feelings and emotions you have, which creates the actions you are willing or not willing to take, which creates your results. So for us, we knew that in all of these moments that it started with our thoughts. And if we think like, why is this happening to me? Of course another thing is happening. Now we are human, so yes, we all have that. But if we were to stay there, we knew we would stay stuck in a place that was not going to get us the results we wanted. And so it really started by reframing our own thoughts and going, what's the opportunity in all of this? What are the lessons that we can take away from this? How can we help other people with this? What can we learn from this? What is life trying to show us? How else can we think about this? And that already opened up our perspective. We started to feel more open and more curious to go, what is this trying to tell us? What is this trying to teach us? And we started to feel, more excited, I guess is an interesting word to describe it, but more excited about the journey of getting healthy, of being healthy, of helping educate other people. And we knew that when we got through the other side of this and we were through enough of it, that we would be able to share and help other people. And so those thoughts and those feelings led us to different actions, taking different health actions, taking different actions of educating other people on these things. And so then we see the different results. And so that's the first thing, is really you need to develop your self-awareness and what is your own thinking about the situation. And if the thinking is, well, of course this happened to me again, how is that impacting the results that you want? And so sometimes we can reverse engineer and say, what do I want to get out of this? What is the end result that I want? And what do I need to be thinking in order to get that? And we knew that if we just started thinking like, yep, here it comes again, like that wouldn't get us where we want to go. The second thing is you need to give yourself grace and compassion, because as much as I say this first part of like, yeah, reframe your thoughts and see the opportunities, like, again, we're human and you're not going to always be that. So give yourself grace and compassion sometimes to be angry, to be mad, to be sad, to be frustrated, to be confused, and to let yourself feel it. Because oftentimes what happens, and I see this for myself and I see this with clients, is when we keep shoving down those emotions and we keep shoving them and pushing them down and saying, it's okay, it's fine, it's going to be okay, then they all come bursting out at some point, and usually not in the way that we would want them to. So we need to feel those things and give yourself that grace and compassion sometimes to go, you know what, today I just need to sit in it for a while. The third thing is to practice gratitude and affirmations. I talk about this all the time, is really, if you want to be able to bounce back more quickly and see more opportunities, then it really starts with that gratitude. And, I've talked about it a bunch. Like I do gratitude in the morning. I've started really trying to do it more at night. We do gratitude with our son and asking him what he was grateful for. We ask him what went good in the day so that he can focus on those things, but really anchoring into, even when you are down in the dirt, you're covered and you're bloody and you're mucky and you're like, I know it's like, but if you just picture it where it's like, oh, I feel like I'm at my lowest point, there's still something you could be grateful for. I don't have dirt in my eye. It's just everywhere else. I don't know. This sounds ridiculous, but honestly, sometimes we have to just like claw our way to finding the thing we're grateful for. And then the times when we're standing up and the skies are blue and it's like, wow, I could make a list of so many things I'm grateful for. And then those affirmations are things you say to yourself about how you choose to show up. Like, I am grateful, I am confident, I am healthy, I am vibrant. It's you telling yourself what you're choosing to be. The fourth thing that you can do to really prepare yourself is put things into perspective. So ask yourself, like, what story am I telling myself about this? Are we making it bigger than what it is? Or are we seeing it for what it is? How true is that story? What is the gift or opportunity in this situation? So not why is this happening to me or what's the reason behind this, because I don't think there's always a reason for these things. People have been through some really intense things personally, professionally, but it's the what's the opportunity from this thing and helping you to sort of see that perspective. And then the fifth one that I talk about is developing your mental fitness, right? So when we talk about mental fitness, this is building up those mental muscles to help you respond to things with this positive rather than negative mindset. And I talk about, you know, even though in those times when I remember getting that call from Jake and we were navigating it, it was scary. And I know I had those moments where my brain went like, oh my gosh, what if it spread to his lymph nodes? What if? And I would have those moments, but I really, to my core, can tell you that I felt this belief that it was going to be okay. I had this belief and I had this, I wouldn't say positive perspective, but I would say it's this outlook and this belief that in this situation we were in, that it was going to be okay. And this was just a little blip on our life's journey and that it wasn't going to be, um, you know, I didn't believe it had spread and that we were going to have a really long journey with it. I believed things were going to be okay. And I do think that part of that is attributed to the work that I have done on my own mental fitness. And I know that I have work I can still make. And I want you to be prepared for those things as well, right? So when we talk about mental fitness, how can we respond to things with more of that positive attitude? And things that you can do is really start to anchor into your senses. So I talk about this where you're, taking deep breaths, you're listening to things, you're looking at things and seeing the color and the shape. So things where we're trying to get out of our head and we're trying to kind of get into our body. So once you do that breathing exercise, or once you get out of that head and you are more tapped into your senses and more tapped into your body, then you ask yourself, what is the gift or opportunity in this situation? Because sometimes if I were to tell you to ask yourself that when we're all caught up in our head in like the heat of it, you can't see it. Right? So developing your mental fitness where you're doing and all of these practices, the gratitude, the perspective, all of those things will continue to build those muscles. And then from the science perspective, you're actually rewiring your brain. You're changing your brain. So we're not just telling you to think positive, like, oh, someone calls you and says you have cancer. We're not telling you to be like, everything's going to be okay and be positive, because that doesn't feel real. What we are doing is we're actually changing the way your brain is wired. So when a situation like that happens to you, you have an option to go, this is bad, or this is good, or this is a gift or opportunity, really. And you have the choice. You get to choose how you're responding. And the more that we see the opportunity in those situations, the more we rewire that brain into being able to build those positive mental muscles. And so when we understand that too, and to know like we get the choice there, if we just take a beat, if we take a minute, and we allow ourselves to feel it, and also we go, what can I do with this? What is the lesson from this? What's the opportunity from this? It allows us, it builds that resilience, it builds those muscles for us to respond. So for you, I want you to think about whether you're standing up and walking clear in the sunshine right now and you just want to prepare yourself for those moments, because the time to prep is not in the battle. It's not when we're in the dirt and we're rolling around and we're trying to get up. That's not the time. The time to do it is before that happens. So here's the thing though. If you are in the dirt right now and you're like, but Julie, like, start doing these things, because it is going to help you. And then you're going to be even that much more prepared for the next time. So the things that I shared, is developing that self-awareness and really tuning into your thoughts and what you're telling yourself about yourself and the situation. Give yourself that grace and compassion to feel it. Practice that gratitude and those affirmations, those I am statements. Put things into perspective and work on developing that mental fitness. And that is how you help prepare yourself when you get punched in the face, hopefully just figuratively in life.